We are live on YouTube. Three minutes to Shaw.
I don't see Councillor Shoemaker or Scott yet. Am I missing them?
No, they've yet to sign in. One minute to Shaw. Thirty seconds to Shaw. And we're live on Shaw.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our council meeting. I want to thank our broadcasting partners and our reporting partners for broadcasting our meetings and reporting on it. Before we get going, I just wanted to make a couple brief comments. We recognize that Ontario is setting records right now in the number of COVID cases we're seeing across the province. We've still been, I think, relatively fortunate in Algoma and Sault Ste. Marie, but nonetheless, we've seen our cases increase here. It's very clear that the variants of concern are more transmissible, and they're having a deleterious effect on a number of people who aren't fortunate enough to catch the virus. So I'd just like to just keep things simple and just ask the community to focus on a couple simple rules. We've had a lot of rules thrown at us, and there's been a lot that's changed over the last year, but I think I would boil it down simply this way. Stay home as much as you can. When you have to go out to engage in one of the activities that's permissible, or you have to go to work, make sure that you wear a mask and you physically distance. So stay home as much as you can. When you have to go out, wear a mask and physically distance. Do not have social gatherings or encourage social gatherings or participate and anyone else's social gatherings. And if you have any symptoms, make sure that you get a test and you make sure that you self-isolate until you get that test back. So I think it's important that we all focus on following those simple rules. And I'm sure if we do, we will come out of this stronger. And in the meantime, this is obviously having a significant effect on a lot of entrepreneurs and local business people, especially our restaurant industry. I want to encourage people to support local as much as you can. There's a great social media initiative out there that Greg Lefebvre started, We Got Your Back, and encourages people to support local restaurants and eateries directly. I would encourage everyone in the community to be mindful of the fact that we have a lot of business people in the community that are challenged and that are having a difficult time. And as and when you can, obviously following all proper public health guidelines, it'd be great to support them. When it is your turn to get a vaccine and you can get a vaccine, we would certainly encourage that. We've had good uptake and response in our community, and I want to thank really all the stakeholders that are working on that project. I think they're delivering the vaccine efficiently when it gets to our community. I want to thank and recognize Public Health and specifically the Go Ontario Health Team for their work and all the community agencies supporting them in their work. And we'll keep on working together here to keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, and by doing that, you'll help keep our community at large safe. Madam Clerk, if you could please start the meeting.
Under agenda item 1, I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dewar resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of March 29, 2021 be approved.
All in favor? Motion is carried.
And under agenda item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest, Councillor Nero has declared with respect to the partnership with Sault YMCA for day camp services, as his daughter is employed by the Sault YMCA. And Councillor Shoemaker has declared with respect to the sale of 206 Cathcart Street on the consent agenda, as well as the associated bylaw 2021-72, as the purchaser is a client of the law firm.
Any other conflicts, Council? Seeing none, thank you.
Under agenda item 4, I've got a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo-Allen, resolve that the agenda for April 12, 2021 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? Carried.
Under agenda item 5.1, proclamation that National Day of Action on Overdose Epidemic.
Just want to recognize, before I read this proclamation, recognize and thank the good folks at Soya who have historically for a number of years done really great and important work in our community, and they've been great to work with, and I'm happy to do this proclamation at its request. Whereas overall, there was a 38.2% increase in opioid-related deaths across Ontario in the first 15 weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is 695 deaths. And the opioid rate and emergency department visits in the province of Ontario were approximately 1.5 times higher in 2020 compared to 2018 and 2019. Whereas Algoma had the highest opioid-related deaths and hospital admission rates in Ontario in 2020. And many people with substance use disorders face significant barriers in accessing treatment. And whereas the deaths of adults aged from 20 to 49 is increasing at an alarming rate, and a study by the Government of Canada found that the rate of opioid-related deaths in Ontario has tripled in the past 15 years, and the most significant increase in young adults. Whereas City Council passed a resolution on April 23rd, 2018 that recognized the opioid crisis along with the challenging and important work being undertaken by local healthcare providers, frontline workers, SOYA, HIV/AIDS Resource Program, Ontario Aboriginal HIV/AIDS Strategy, and the Drug Strategy Committee, and committed to continue to support that work. Whereas City Council remains committed to supporting the efforts of our community, raising awareness about this issue, and combating the stigma associated with opioid addiction. Therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim April 16th, 2021 as the National Day of Action on the Overdose Epidemic here in the City of Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you.
The Sault Ste. Marie Public Library Annual Report is under Agenda Item 7.8.1, And Chair Wayne Greco and Chief Executive Officer Matthew McDonald are on the call to take questions.
Madam Clerk, if I'm correct, there's no presentation to go along with this report, correct? They're just on the call to take questions if council has any questions.
I believe that the chair was going to make some brief remarks.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Greco. Welcome to council.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Wayne Greco, I'm Chair of the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library Board. Joining me in the presentation is Matthew McDonald, our CEO. On behalf of the Board of Directors, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about our 2020 annual report. In a time of uncertainty and a lot of COVID-related problems, we want to share with Council our good news story. Despite doing continuing on the city and the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie, the library has made efforts to reinvent itself and provide service to the community. We value the input and support of Council as we move forward in the coming year. Please join us, or try to join us, in our 125th year of celebration this coming summer. Hopefully, we'll be in person. Matthew is going to take you through some of the highlights of our 2020 annual report. Thank you again.
So I can take you through some highlights, or I could just answer a few questions if you have them regarding the report.
Oh, Matthew, you're welcome. I just didn't have a presentation attached to our agenda here, so I didn't know if you were making one, but if you were making one and sharing your screen, that's completely fine.
I just had some comments regarding the report itself.
Okay, go ahead. We're in your hands.
Okay. So as you're aware, the year started out pretty well for the library. We actually received the Chamber of Commerce Award for Accessibility for the newly opened North Branch. And our programming was going strong. We had lots of visitors. The library was involved in a lot of activity in the community. And then COVID happened and the library temporarily closed its doors. In our annual report, you'll see a timeline of all the significant events that happened for the library during the year. And though closed, not all the library services were disrupted. We continued to offer online services to our community, and these included information databases, services such as our Overdrive and our Hoopla, which allows you to download ebooks and audiobooks, which was really important for our community members who were stuck at home and who are stuck at home, to be able to access materials for education and entertainment. By May, when the government's restrictions lessened, we did transition to a new contactless service model. And in summer, along with Sudbury's library, we were one of the first in Northern Ontario to open up and offer in-person services. So I think that's a big accomplishment on our part. We adapted, we provided a new readers advisory service, Surprise Rates for Kids, which established a way to help families who are unable to browse our shelves. So our staff are gathering materials based on the children's interests and making sure that we're getting books into their hands. Our programming also changed. They had to. So many people come to visit us, and then we had to transition so that we were visiting them in their living rooms. So our story times went online. We offered takeaway crafts for children through our curbside service during the summer and winter breaks. We gave online tutorials. We engaged the community electronically with programs such as our online Lego Club, a virtual author palooza, which highlighted many of our local authors, and we participated in cultural days online. We did what we could to keep our community engaged, learning, and entertained during one of the most difficult years this generation's ever seen. And throughout the annual report, you will find more information about these activities and the reach they had. Though closed to the public, our time was not idle. We did manage to complete several construction projects at the James L. McIntyre Centennial Library during that time, and we updated much of our wayfinding to be bilingual thanks to a grant from the Ministry of Francophone Affairs. A very large project, which we did highlight at the budget deliberations, was the Sault Star Archives, which we received at the end of last year. When the Sault Star closed its offices, they had 1 month to vacate, and our staff acted quickly to relocate those collections to new archival space at the North Branch and to the local history collection at the James L. McIntyre Centennial Library. And this collection is going to be an invaluable source for information for our community for years to come. The Sault Ste. Marie Public Library has been an institution that has existed for 125 years, and this is the second pandemic that the library has seen since it was established in 1896. Through all that time, the library has demonstrated that it is an invaluable resource to the community, and I believe our annual report demonstrates that. It has also proven that it is a resilient, adaptive organization that continues to evolve with our community and to meet our community's needs. And we've really proven that over this last year. So on behalf of the board and staff, I want to thank you for your continued support of the library and the community it serves.
So Wayne, before we take questions, let me thank you for your leadership and the board's leadership. And I want to thank Matthew for your work as the day-to-day leader of the organization. And I agree with you, libraries are important in the service that you provide to our communities, an important service, and it's a very good service. So thank you for that. Council, do we have any questions for Wayne or Matthew? Councilor Dufour, followed by Councilor Hollingsworth.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a comment. I just wanted to congratulate the library board and staff on their 125th year. I'm very much excited for the day when this pandemic's over and my kids can once again enjoy that wonderful new children's section at the North Branch Library. So thanks very much, and please give all my best to the board and staff. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
So Councilor Hollingsworth, and then after Councilor Hollingsworth, we'll go to Councilor Bruni.
Thank you. I just want to say a few positives. First of all, well done. It's been a very challenging year, so well done on the library and the team. But two positive comments. Over the last year, 2 years, many of my constituents have been enjoying the mini libraries around their neighborhoods. And so again, I just want to pass that on. Having those books in those small little takeaway homes boxes are exceptional. And also you made a comment about local authors. Highlighting our local talent is also a very positive piece. So well done. And like my fellow councillor Dufour, please pass on all my best to your team, and look forward to seeing the new facilities as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question regarding your archive center. Obviously, you weren't expected to take on the Sault Stars archives, but what's the capacity at the James L. McIntyre Center? Is there quite a bit of space left, or is your archive centers basically being filled up?
Well, we moved our archives to the North Branch, and we were able to expand by about, I want to say 300%. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head. So there was always room for growth. Now this is going to take up a bit of that space, and we have divided the collection a little bit because a lot of our local history is at the James L. McIntyre Centennial Library. So what we've done is we've split all the primary resources have gone to archives, and then secondary resources like clippings and some scrap notes and stuff like that have gone to the Centennial Library. And our staff are making great use of that. They're writing the Remember This articles, and they're quite popular. They're posted on Sault Today regularly. And we're using a lot of that information that we got from the Sault Star archives, along with what we had in our regular archives, to research and write those articles to get that history out to the community.
Those articles on Sault Today, I enjoy reading them very much. Very, very good little project that you have there. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm very proud of my staff. They do a great job on those.
And if I may, Councilor Bruni, if you want to, your family's been in this community a long time. We would like to do a little history search on your distant relatives. It's a good place to start.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your time tonight. You can see there's a lot of appreciation of the library's work, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
So there is a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo-Allen, resolved that the 2020 annual report of the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library be received as information, and I will just open that to vote.
All in favor? Motion is carried. So just submit your votes on eScribe, and then we can get to the consent agenda.
So on the consent agenda, I just wanted to point out that on agenda item 6.3, the roof replacement for Roberta Bonder Park, it was discovered that there was a typographical error with respect to the tendered price, so it has been amended to $154,160 as was discussed in the body of the report.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're on the consent agenda. I had Councillor Vezo-Allen reach out to me with some matters, so we'll start there.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a comment on 6.5 first for the YMCA, the having the rent waived. Just a comment for everyone, my colleagues on council, as well as people watching. The Y does some really amazing work with kids through the Strong Kids program, and a lot of children in the Sault Ste. Marie area do receive funding internally through the Y. So I think this is a really important thing for us to do. I know the Y is over 68% of charities in Canada have seen a decrease since the pandemic in fundraising. So fundraising dollars are hard, and that's how they help to give kids scholarships to attend summer camp. So I think anything that we can do in the city to ensure that kids can get some sort of safe recreation and learning activity is well deserved, and really want to reach out to the Y and thank them for still being able to offer services to the kiddos, because I know it's definitely challenging times. So that's it for comments for 6.5.
Okay, anybody else on 6.5? You had another one, Councillor Vezo?
Yes, 6.12.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think is Maggie McCauley on the line, or?
Just ask your question, and Don Elliott will take it or send it where he sees fit.
Wonderful. I have had some questions from constituents wondering when the stairs are going to be operational. And I know with this scope of work, you might not be able to give an exact, but Don, will we have the stairs operational, do you think, this summer?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezo-Allen, that's the intent, but we're at the design stage right now. This is essentially a sanitary sewer failure.
Yeah.
So we need to go through the design tender procedure. Whether the stairs can be put back into service prior to the sewer being completed, I'm not sure yet. We haven't done that design. So I'd best say it's going to be several months at this point.
Okay, that's it for all my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else in 6.12? Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Elliott, what's the next step in the process, assuming council gives its all clear to select the engineer? And what are some of the timelines involved in those next steps?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, the next step is to retain the consultant. They will do a preliminary design investigation. We're not certain whether it may be possible for us to do a trenchless repair of the sanitary sewer, which may, that's a more technical way of doing things. If we can get a contractor lined up to do that, that might be the preferred way, but it could be very expensive as well. If we have to open cut, then it's more of a traditional project. Therefore, it would be design, tender it as soon as we can and get it out. So it's going to be a month or two at least for design and approvals, and 2 or 3 weeks for tender, and probably 2 or 3 months for construction. So it will take most of the construction season.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Elliott. Appreciated.
Okay, so anybody else in 6.12? Seeing none. Councillor Gardy, you have matters and consent.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First one, 6-1, the outstanding council resolutions.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just looking at page 4 of the outstanding council resolutions, and I'm going to call attention again to the transient accommodations resolution that Councillor Scott and I put forward a year and a half ago or so. In speaking with a couple of conversations I had with staff, I had anticipated it back February, sometime in March. It's now April, and I'm just asking that staff can do whatever they can to get this back as soon as they can. I'd like a dialogue to start about it around this table prior to summer, and those are my comments on that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody else on 6-1? Seeing none, is that it, Councillor Gardy? Do you have anything else?
No, I got 6.6 as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Which I think is the memorandum of understanding with the Algoma Trails Network. I just wanted to point out, like many of us probably can appreciate, that there aren't many better projects that hit on the precise objectives of the strategic plan as this project does in relation to increasing tourism visits and creating a city where, quote, people want to live, visit, and do business. And I don't think we should underestimate the popularity of trail riding and biking and the opportunity it can provide us, especially for our local businesses. So I just wanted to wish best of luck to the city, to Travis, the EDC, the Conservation Authority, and the Sioux Cycling Club in getting this done. I think it's a great project.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Gardy. Anybody else in 6-6? I agree with your comments on that, Councillor Gardy, entirely. Okay, so do we have anybody else that has consent matters? So I'm going to go to Councillor Bruni next.
I had one more, but that's fine.
Yeah, we're past you now. You said I thought 6-6 was your last one. Councillor Bruni?
Okay, thank you. 6.3, the Roberta roof project replacement. I'd just like to know, was this roof ever replaced before, or is this the first time for this roof?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, I have to go back to the records. There hasn't been any recent roof repaired to this structure. It's the two separate roofs, the flat roof over the front, over the canteen and the washrooms in the rear by Beaver Tails and past the auditorium area. So this is a full replacement, this project, for both those sections of the roof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on 6-3? Do you have anything else, Councillor Bruni?
Yes, just one more regarding the mausoleum on 6.4.
6-4.
I guess to Mr. Lamming, any thought about pre-selling the mausoleums before they're built? And I'm not talking about the resolution that's in front of us right now. I'm talking about the regular mausoleums that you've been building for the last several years.
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, that's a great idea to take note of that, to express the interest, because as you point out, we've had quite good success this last build here with 144 crypts. As of today, we only have 22 crypts left, so we really have great demand for that, and that's something that we'd look to bring forward within a potential budget request and at 2022 discussion later this year.
So you might bring it forward that you can purchase the mausoleum prior to having it being built, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, the budget request would come forward this year with respect to our reserve to support that moving forward. We would have to obtain some kind of process to have deposits. That hasn't been done in the past, so that would be something new.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Anybody else on 6-4? Councillor Dufour, do you have any matters? I thought I saw you put your hand up.
Sorry, that was on Councillor Gardy's matter. I had a question, but I didn't get in there fast enough.
Well, we can circle back to that. What was the question?
I just wanted to ask through you to Mr. Anderson for an update on the Algoma Trail Network. Where are we in construction, and what will the second phase involve?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour. Just with respect to construction for this season, we're currently in the final planning stages. obviously this latest lockdown threw us for a little bit of a loop. We were just trying to assess, what the impacts of this new lockdown will have. But if all goes well, we'll be starting construction first thing this spring. Our plan is to proceed immediately with the trail that will go out to Farmer Lake. It's going to be the main corridor trail of the network. And what we're targeting right now is to have 20 kilometers built by the end of this year. And we're also working with the Kinsman Club of Sault Ste. Marie on another trailhead feature for the trail that they're going to be providing some fundraising dollars for, which will be a youth skills park. So we're hoping to have that constructed this year and be ready by August as well. So if, just in summary, if all goes well, we don't get delayed too much by the pandemic, then we should have the bulk of the trail construction completed by the end of this summer.
That's really exciting. Thanks for that update, Mr. Anderson. I hope for the day when we could have a really great ribbon cutting for such a great community asset. I think it would be really well attended and really well appreciated. So thanks for the update.
Thank you.
I recognize, Travis, that COVID has introduced some challenges to these projects. And obviously I read the story about the inability for our suppliers to actually get bikes, but it seems to me that there was a real significant demand for bikes and for biking, and there's been significant growth in that activity and industry in our community, and I think that's a real positive. I don't think there's any reason why we can't have the best trail network in all of Ontario, if not the country, really, with this community at the epicenter of that. So it's great work, and I think it's important work, and I think you're going to see coming out of COVID, a lot of people really active and using bicycles and enjoying the trails. So it's good that we're on this.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I will just state, we will have the best network. So
there you go.
It's not a question. We will have the best network once we're done. So
that's awesome, Travis. You know what? And I believe that. I believe that sincerely. Okay, so Councillor Dufour, you don't have any matters on consent then? Councillor Hollingsworth, I just saw you put your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to also ask a question on, since we're talking about the trails again, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Through your worship to Travis. Wonderful project. Correct me if I'm wrong. If someone wishes to sponsor or to make a donation, how do they do that? Get a hold of you? Or I believe you are accepting sponsorship, you said, and donations. Can you just reiterate that, please?
Certainly. So there might be a little bit of confusion here because there's two networks, bike networks, that are currently raising funds. The project that we're partnered on right now is with the Kinsman Club of Sault Ste. Marie on the youth skills park. And there's a number of groups that have donated to that initiative. And probably they can reach out to me directly, but I'll probably direct them off to the Kinsman Club of Sault Ste. Marie for that. So that's one. And then the cycling club is also in the midst of a fundraising campaign for their Finn Hill initiative. And they have a link on their website for their fundraising. But for specific to the Algoma Trail Network, if people want to contact me directly, I can put them in touch with the appropriate people at the Kinsman Club at this point.
Okay, great. And I think that sometimes donations could be material or financial donations, correct? Usually?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything that people are willing to donate can be a big help for all parties. So we appreciate it.
Okay, great. Again, thank you. That's all.
Okay, so do we have any other matters on consent? Councillor Shoemaker.
Sorry about that. I was trying to get my mic working. On 6.7, through you to, I believe, probably Mr. Bear. This is the Hub Trail.
Ontario Municipal Commuter Cycling Program.
Yes. Through you to Mr. Bear. Mr. Bear, the report talks about improvements to the intersection at Huron and Bay as the 2021 priority. When do we anticipate that a link to James Street will be in the offing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. I don't have a timeline on that at this point. The team will be coming back at a future council meeting to discuss the next phase of active transportation. And with that, we should have an update related to further build outs of the trail network.
Okay, thanks for that. I see many mornings I'm on Carmen's Way that they're doing work under the bridge. I'm not sure who it is that's doing work under the bridge, but it appears they're putting up fencing. So perhaps some communication with whoever that is, might be the Federal Bridge Corporation, I'm not sure, to be sure that in the future we can still pass through there in order to connect to James Street.
We will make note of that and make sure we follow up.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else on 6-7? Okay. Councillor Shoemaker, do you have anything else on consent?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Councillor Scott, I saw your hand there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually just was hoping to make a quick comment on 6.9, that choose to refuse take the plastic-free challenge, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just actually wanted to commend staff. I think this is a very timely thing to get back. I really appreciate the hard work on this one. The work with Clean North, I know that it's really a big growing concern in the community. I know that there's a lot of zero waste initiatives happening throughout the city. I really like everything that's been laid out here. I think this is a fantastic way to present it. And I know that COVID added a little bit of a wrench into this initiative, given that we can't really encourage people to not use single-use plastic bags at the grocery stores, but everything else on here has been awesome to see working around that. So it was more just a commendation for staff saying great job, and it's awesome to see this come back.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Anybody else on 6-9? Councillor Gardy, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just a few things. I'd encourage corporate communications to work with not only Clean North, but some other community partners, including the Conservation Authority, Algoma University, Sault College, and some of the school boards to amplify the message. I think it's a good program. It's a good idea in terms of not only educating the public, but serving as a decent way to prepare people. I think that was the idea behind it. People and organizations, businesses, for more and more plastic-free existence here in Sault Ste. Marie, being situated where we are in the heart of the Great Lakes, I think we need to be a leader in protecting them. They pose an almost existential threat to marine environments, and we have to work towards their elimination. I'm hopeful that over the next few months, you'll see more and more local businesses transition away from single-use plastics. I know Councillor Hilsinger. I commend her for reaching out to some business owners in and around the Soo. I've done that as well. And if there are any councillors or you, Mr. Mayor, who are in favor of this initiative, I'd encourage you to reach out to the contacts that you have in the community to start having this discussion about plastic-free or single-use plastics in the community. And whether it be for groceries, takeout, or hardware material, I think we need to do what we can to move away from single-use plastics. And I think we need to press on. I think this is a great start, and I appreciate staff for the start. So thanks to Susan and the rest of PW staff who helped out.
Okay, thank you. Was that your third matter you wanted, Councillor Gardy?
Yeah, it was. Thanks.
Okay, so anybody else in 6-9? Councillor Hilsinger, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I'd love to see as many Suites as possible sign up on this pledge at the gold level. When we really take a look at how we're using plastics, there's so much that we can do. And I think sometimes we don't even realize it. We just gotten so used to behaving in a certain way. So let's go for the gold. And as Councillor Gardy mentioned, he and I have been reaching out to different types of businesses on their use of single-use plastics. And I will say that I was really excited to see that many have already, some grocery type businesses, some retail and pharmacy businesses, some hospitality industry businesses, they have already significantly reduced their use of single-use plastics, and in some cases completely eliminated them. And I hope that as part of this pledge, we can bring that forward so people can see the businesses that have taken these steps. And I would just encourage all of our residents to please stop using plastic grocery bags. Just stop. There's so many options these days of reusable bags that we have access to, and we've got to do better, and we will do better, and go for the gold. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that passion, Councillor Hilsinger. Okay, anybody else on 669? Okay, does anybody else have any matters on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
I have a motion by Councillor Scott and Dufour. Resolved that all items listed under date April 12, 2021, agenda item 6, consent agenda, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried.
And that will take us to agenda item 7.1.1, the Point to Shane update, under which there are 2 reports. The first motion I have is by Councillors Gardy and Vezo-Allen. Resolved that the report of April 12, 2021 concerning the former Point to Shane campground be received as information. That's the report from the City Solicitor.
Okay, so listen, Council, we're at 7.1. There's 2 reports there. There's a report from the CEO and a report from the City Solicitor. What we'll do is we'll take any questions you might have, and we'll deal with the resolutions after we're done that. A lot of this information, you've been through and have been available to you. This was an opportunity to, make available to the public the information that kind of was available to us. And so staff wanted to do that and confirm the direction that they received from us. I think the reports taken together paint a very kind of clear picture of what we are dealing with and the decisions that we faced. And now that they're available openly here in the public, you can ask any questions you like, and then we'll move to the resolutions. So Councillor Scott, I saw you put your hand up there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so I have several questions. I think I'll start with directing them. I could leave and just put them in the open. You guys could direct toward the proper staff member. But in regards to the residential sampling, it's outlined in the report under 7111. I had several constituents reach out to me over the weekend after this came out. They had been aware formally of the benzene issue. And these are constituents who live right across the street from where this burned plane was. They were unaware of the PFAS, is that how you say it? Contamination. And they also mentioned that they read about the program that should have been started with, or developed, I guess, with APH and Transport Canada in August of 2019 and remains ongoing. All of the constituents I spoke to have never had their water tested by APH for the PFAS since August 2019. So they're very concerned about that. Does anyone here happen to know, I've reached out to APH, I didn't hear back. Anyone happen to know if that program has actually in fact started? Have they begun testing residential water? A lot of these constituents were quite concerned about this.
So we're going to go to you with that on that, Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, that's really a question that APH needs to be answering, just because we don't have any part of the residential sampling. I'm not sure if either Ms. Fields or Ms. Hamilton Beach have any further information on that, but.
Through you to the councillors in general. I've gone through a number of the documents. So if I can go back to 2008, APH started the residential sampling at that time, we're told. And at that time, they were testing for benzene and the PFAS group. And that was posted in their minutes in November. So that could have been seen by the public. In 2016, there was additional testing that was done on November 14th to the 17th in 2016. And that was also noted. And I want to say that in 2019, there was sampling done August the 12th to the 16th, and we're told by Transport Canada that they will do sampling again in the summer of 2021. What I can tell from the documents is that they had picked a possibility of 66 residents in the area, and they sent letters out. The city saw a draft of the letter that would go out. In the letters, they did mention benzene and PFAS. So both sets of chemicals were in those letters as far back as 2016. And I think, I am not exactly sure how it works, but I think it's people that agree to be sampled. That's where the sample takes place.
Okay, that's good information. None of the constituents that reached out had mentioned any sort of letter. So I did reach out to APH. I'm hoping to get an answer back from them for this because it's a pretty big health concern of theirs. And I've been reading about it, and it's not something that you want to have in your water. So I appreciate the answer for that one. I have another question. Have we had any discussions with MP Sheehan about this? About what he can do to get Transport Canada to get on, I think it was points 1 and 3 that we'd stopped hearing back from. Has anyone had any discussions with him?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott. With the discussions we've had with Transport Canada over the last few months, we feel that things are moving now, and we feel that through our work to coordinate all the parties that need to have input into this, that everybody recognizes now that it needs to move more quickly than it has. Certainly, we would keep the option to advise MP Sheehan if we need to, but at this particular point in time, we feel the meetings are moving along all right.
In our time that we've known about this, would we think right now the discussions are probably the most productive? Like, do we see this going somewhere, or are we going to be talking about this in 10 more years, saying, it's going to happen soon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Scott, certainly with the staff we have here on it right now, we think things are moving along quickly. We've certainly made our positions well known to both Transport Canada, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. Those are the two regulatory, well, the MECP is the regulatory body that oversees it. Transport Canada obviously operated the airport when the contamination occurred. And so certainly, as recently as last week, both those parties know the urgency that we're addressing this with, and that we want to see a solution for.
Great. That's everything I have for questions on this. I really do hope that this is something that we can get resolved soon, and I wouldn't mind seeing regular updates if possible to council on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. And certainly encourage you. I think you are our representative on APH's board, so I certainly encourage you to raise any concerns you have about that at the APH board level.
Absolutely.
So I have Councillor Gardy next, and Councillor Shoemaker.
So thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the staff informing us that things are moving along and they're concentrating on it. I take them at their word, and I thank Malcolm and the staff for it. I'm of the opinion, I've stated it before, I'm going to state it again, that this has never been a problem that the corporation of the city of Sault Ste. Marie had the resources and or the expertise to solve. And we should have never had to work so hard to get those responsible to solve it working on it. Now, I get that it isn't the easiest problem to remedy, but the federal government, by way of the problem, which is first and foremost an environmental problem, it threatens groundwater and shoreline areas of the St. Mary's River and the Great Lakes. So the federal government needs to once and for all commit to remediating the issue to the extent that they can. successive governments and transport administrations, have not worked for a permanent solution. They need to. I'm glad city staff is pressing them on that. And the feds, through transport or whatever other ministries, need to play a role, whether it be environment and climate change or fisheries and oceans, need to finally commit to ending this. And I will tell you that, I've spoken to MP Sheehan about this. He's told me that he's willing to assist, and he said that he'd made a couple calls. This is going back about a month or two ago, and I take him at his word as well. But this is a federal government problem. We see where it's gotten us, and I'm really hopeful that through the work of staff that we're going to get some movement on this. And I appreciate Councillor Scott for raising it as well. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll go Councillor Shoemaker, then Councillor Dufour.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gardy seemed to be getting to the point that I wanted to make, but I'll put it perhaps a bit more directly to the city solicitor. This is the federal government's responsibility, in my opinion. Can we sue them for their lack of action here?
I'm just going to pause there before the city solicitor speaks and see kind of the CEO's perspective on this. You can sue, you can sue anybody, but it's not our practice, Councillor Shoemaker, to talk about legal actions and potential legal remedies in open council. Not saying that we can't do that, but I wanted to stop and get the CEO's perspective before we move on and the city solicitor answers that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, both to Councillor Shoemaker and council as a whole, when we start talking about actual legal actions and potential legal moves, strategically, we would prefer that those discussions be held and closed.
Do you accept that, Councillor Shoemaker, or are you still looking for an answer to your question?
I do accept that. I would just say that certainly as one of 11 here, I think that it's an action we ought to keep at the forefront if we need to indicate to the federal government that we are serious about them coming to the table and resolving this. Otherwise, we will look for other avenues to resolve it with them footing the bill. So happy to defer to staff on discussing that in closed session, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Shoemaker. I think both. I think that comment collectively with the comments that we've heard from Councillor Scott and Councillor Gardy should make it clear that this council is very impatient with the response we've received with the federal government. But as staff has indicated tonight, there have been some productive conversations and things, they feel like they're moving along. So I think our patience and our frustration at how long it's taken to get this resolved should be reflected and noted, and they should be aware of that. But we will also want to make sure we preserve staff's ability to move productive conversations along and hopefully come to a productive conclusion. I know Councillor Gardy has spoken to our MP. I have spoken to our MP. But as for now, this is at the staff level, and we're told they're making some progress. So we'll kind of take that and hope it continues. And if it doesn't continue, I think then this conversation and the frustration that we have, we'll deal with it and address it at that time. So I have Councillor Dufour next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question is, has the city asked Transport Canada for the provision of a new well or water source, or has the conversation solely been around remediating the existing well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, Transport Canada is looking at a variety of options and have hired third-party engineering to look at those options. They have shared some of that information with us of what they've looked at and what they are zeroing in as to what they feel the preferred solution is. We certainly will continue to engage with them on the different options and what we perceive as the best solution.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that city staff hasn't narrowed this conversation in any way? The kind of the guiding principle here is the provision of potable water. in whichever way Transport Canada's engineers see fit. Is that accurate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, I would characterize the discussion as city staff ensuring that Transport Canada is looking at all the options available, and that we continue to have discussion on what we see as the most sustainable option going forward.
Okay, and just as my final follow-up question, obviously we're looking for options that result in permanent solution to this problem, not just the temporary provision of potable water. Would that be accurate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, yes, that's accurate.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, I have Councillor Hollingsworth next.
Thank you. Most of my questions were already asked and answered. I just want to reiterate that I look forward to having an update at our next council meeting. And I know our staff, Mr. White, is definitely on top of this. And I know that he's very concerned. So I look forward to continuous updates on this very serious matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this matter? Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment. I'm still very disappointed that we're not using probably our most important asset, which would be Terry Sheehan, to be at the table to provide his dialogue. I'm glad to hear that in the last 2 weeks, staff has had communication, but prior to the 2 weeks, we were told very little communication has occurred. So I think it's still very important to get Mr. Sheehan involved. He is our representative, and I believe he should be at the table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, I need to comment on that. Discussion has been occurring, not just in the last 2 weeks, but certainly before that. Discussion that has had meaningful results, hasn't always. But certainly the city didn't cause the water problem. The city is looking for sustainable solutions to it.
I totally understand that, Mr. White, but I think one of our important assets is our MP, and I think he should be there, and he should be at the table. And I'll just leave it at that. That's my opinion. So for dialogue, we were told in previous meetings, very little dialogue was occurring. And I'm glad that now dialogue is occurring. That's a positive. That's all.
Just for the record, Councillor Bruni, that wasn't my interpretation of what staff was saying in previous meetings. I think productive dialogue maybe wasn't occurring, but they were certainly consistently communicating with Transport Canada.
I'm not saying that they weren't communicating with Transport Canada. Transport Canada was not communicating to city staff. And that's why I say it was important to get Mr. Sheehan involved. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on this matter? Councillor Dufour, you had a go at it. You have another one?
I was just going to ask if Mr. White could take us through the next few steps for the public's benefit and then over the next few months.
Mr. White?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dufour and council as a whole. Certainly our recommendation is that we be directed to continue to work with Transport Canada, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and Algoma Public Health to ensure the timely and sustainable provision of potable water for the campground and day park, and to report further to council on recommendations for the future of the campground once the provision of potable water has been established. Certainly from staff's point of view, we see this as being as engaged as possible with those parties to ensure the solution to potable water is realized as soon as possible.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That's great.
Okay. Thank you, staff, for those reports. We appreciate it. We appreciate your work, and we hope that it continues to be productive. with Transport Canada. I know staff is aware of the level of frustration on council's part on this matter. I know you're dealing with it and addressing it as best you can. Hopefully we'll come to some satisfactory resolutions in the very near term. And I assure Councillor Bruni that our MP's aware of our frustration, and he's been communicated with at a political level in any event. Madam Clerk, if you could read the resolutions, we can vote on them.
I had read the first, which was a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vazo-Allen accepting the report of the city solicitor as information, and I have opened that for a vote.
All in favor? Motion is carried.
And the second is a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that the report of the CAO dated April 12, 2021 concerning Pointe-du-Chien campground update and next steps be received, and that staff be directed to continue to work with Transport Canada, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and Algoma Public Health to ensure the timely and sustainable provision of potable water for the campground and day park, and to report further to Council on recommendations for the future of the campground once the provision of potable water has been established.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
That takes us to agenda item 8.1. It's a motion by Councillors Dufour and Scott, whereas the real estate value located within a city's borders is the main revenue source of most municipalities, and growth in that amount value is one of the many ways that city budgets keep up with inflation. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie over the last 20 years has experienced increasing assessment values in some neighborhoods, but not others, at the same time as having an aggregate in-year new growth rate of less than 1%. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie has access to detailed mapping from the Innovation Centre that shows these geographic areas of assessment growth versus stagnation, and whereas it is in the interest of all Sault Ste. Marie ratepayers to ensure that assessment distribution is as evenly spread through the city as possible, and that new growth does not come at additional cost to the existing levy. And whereas new development is one of the main sources of new assessment growth, provided that new development does not shift assessment value away from another area of the city. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie is the largest city in Ontario without development charges or a cost recovery mechanism for planning charges, both of which are key tools for a municipality to ensure that growth does not create assessment decline and stagnation elsewhere. And whereas the city of Sault Ste. Marie is examining options for new growth community improvement plans, many of which in comparative municipalities provide development charges, exemptions for certain types of zones or needed development. Now, therefore, be it resolved that relevant staff be requested to prepare a report outlining the best options for Sault Ste. Marie to adopt further tools to ensure that the cost of new development accurately reflects the cost to the general levy.
Okay, Councillor Dufour, we're going to let you go first here. It's your motion. I think it's going to be one of the more substantial things that we've considered this term or will consider this term. It's a big, this is a big project, and you know, there's a lot to think through here. So we'll give it a go, and then I'll give Councillor Scott a chance to speak after you if he's interested in doing that, and then we'll go around the horn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with your assessment there. One of the things that I wanted to say about this motion, and I'm not going to rehash all that was in the preambles, but I do believe that this motion is a very important one for our community. It addresses, in my opinion, what is one of the biggest long-term challenges in Sault Ste. Marie. And I think it's really important that we see these questions that this motion is trying to address as being ones that are in the interests of the entire community. This is not about a tax on developers or a tax on development or on the construction industry. Otherwise I would be a pretty odd spokesperson for it, being as I'm employed in the construction industry. But this is really about having a tax base that's sustainable for generations. This is about helping to ensure that The investment in new development in our community is spread and shared widely, and it is done in a way that is not going to cost the general levy. I think that when you talk to a lot of the developers in Sault Ste. Marie and as well all of the citizens who enjoy our city, we all realize that having areas of the city that are falling behind is not in our best interest. All of us as taxpayers do pay the general levy, and to have places that are unable to keep up and to afford with the average cost of that levy is just creating a bigger burden for us all. So I appreciate Council's consideration of this matter, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Councillor Scott, do you have any comments as a seconder?
Just keep it brief. Nothing I can really add beyond what Councillor Dufour said, but when he did mention this idea to me and asked if I would second it, I definitely jumped on it. He explained it in a way that really showed that this will get to the root of a lot of the issues that I know that I personally get called about as a councillor, and I know that probably the rest of council as well. I think that this is just beneficial all around, and at the very least, what we're doing here is we're getting a report back outlining the best options. We're not necessarily making a full commitment at this point, but we're going to get to see the options and see what that could lead to. So I think that this would be something hopefully the rest of council could agree on, and we can see that, you know, there's some options out there. We don't necessarily have to make that decision right now. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, Councillor Scott. You're not in fact making that decision right now. You're just asking for the report back to review it and consider it and discuss it. Councillor Shoemaker, you wanted to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak in opposition to this motion. I understand the submissions of Councillor Dufour and Councillor Scott that this is neither a tax on development or a proposal for a tax on development, nor is it a report asking for the implementation of development charges. And I agree with that. However, in the last term of council, we had the issue of development charges was being studied. And before that study was even complete, they came to council at the time to present an update on the report. And at that time, council had determined collectively that we had no interest in implementing development charges. And my position hasn't changed, that I have no interest in implementing development charges, and in fact, no interest in studying development charges any further, as was my position last time. So while I appreciate that the report requests that we look at all available methods, I mean, staff does that as part of their regular duties. Authorizing them to do so is inviting them to bring back a report on development charges, in my opinion. In fact, I think it almost implies it directly in the motion when it says we're the largest city without development charges, and we should look at options for additional tools to implement cost recovery. So while I agree with Councillor Dufour's assessment that development charges are not a tax on the construction industry, what they are is a way of increasing the price of everything that's built. Because ultimately someone pays the development charges, and it's not the contractor, and it's not the building supply stores, it's the person who buys the end product. So the person who's buying a new house or building a new buying a lot within a subdivision is going to pay those development charges. We've already seen the prices of real estate going up significantly in our community in the last 12 months. And this would just further add to those increased costs. And I think we had some evidence at a recent council meeting that we are a very affordable community. I think this puts us further away from affordability targets because it will ultimately increase the end price of a new build. So I was against it in 2016. I'm still against it, and I think that this is opening the door to development charges again, and I will be voting against it for that reason. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments from councillors? I don't have an additional list. Councillor Bezois.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to probably maybe, well, I'll just ask the question. So in the motion, and I think I do support development charges. I think it makes sense for us. The fees are offset the cost of increased municipal services and infrastructure, and we do have a need for that. We also want to see new development. And I've lived in communities where development charges were just, the normal way of doing business. So I'm used to that sort of thing. My question would be about the exemptions. So what would be deemed exempt? So would this be a development charge? And I mean, staff is looking at this, that it's just someone building on a new green field. Would the exemption be if someone's developing a derelict property? So I'm kind of just wanting to get an essence of what constitutes that exemption.
As that word is used in the motion, Councillor Vezoel?
It is, yeah.
Because, that you're looking for clarity on how that word's used in the motion. I don't think it's, we'll let Councillor Dufour speak to that, but he's not proposing specific, and Councillor Dufour, it's your motion, I'll let you speak to that. So we wouldn't be able to give you any details on what that would look like because staff obviously hasn't worked on this yet, but Councillor Dufour could kind of explain his rationale for outlining it that way.
Yeah.
Sure. Great question. Happy to answer it. Some of the community, I think it speaks to a lot of the growth community improvement plans that I've examined from other Ontario communities. And what those do is where they carve out exemptions, it's actually exemptions for geographical areas that are in need of more investment, that aren't seeing the same levels of new growth that other areas of a municipality may be seeing. As well, other communities will do things like waive development charges on affordable housing, for instance. So it's got a lot of there's a lot of latitude with how the tool can be used. There's also community benefits charges, different ways of doing planning cost recovery. So I try not to get too prescriptive or specific because I'd really like to give staff a kind of a wide lane to bring us back what they see as best for Sault Ste. Marie. But where the exemption comes in would be coming in through a gross CIP that would help to redirect the investment in places that we see fit.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Anything else, Council? So, Councillor Dufour, we'll end with me, I suppose. Then I'm going to support your resolution because it's asking for a report, and I generally, as a rule, always support councillor initiatives when they want a report back on something that I think is a substantive issue that we could legitimately consider. I think I've told you this when you've raised it with me. I'm not committing to the resolution of this, or I'm not committing to the outcome I think that you might intend here, but I'm going to keep an open mind on it, because one of the things that I've really focused on over the last 6 years, and I've thought a lot about, and we've worked on, is our affordability, to Councillor Shoemaker's point. And I think one of the things that you point out here, which is correct, is we generally do everything here through the general levy, and we have very few other external cost recovery mechanisms, and that puts a lot of pressure on our general levy. And we work hard to be affordable. We've had independent audits from municipal audits from firms like KPMG. We get good reviews from the firms that come in and look at and assess our credit rating. And we know that we do very little outside of our non-core. And of our core, we know that we're providing services really at an expected level and not at a kind of a greater than a required level. So we're running a pretty efficient ship. But we still have significant residential realty taxes. We hear about that a lot. A lot of us hear about that. And we have some problems with our ratios, residential vis-a-vis commercial and industrial. And we have some higher rates in those commercial industrial classes that we want to bring down. Hard to do that when we really cover the vast majority of our costs through our general levy. So I've got an open mind, to consider different ways of doing things to try and solve some of the challenges that we have. And I don't see any harm in considering this. I trust that staff will bring us a very thorough kind of assessment of it, and I trust council's ability to go through that assessment, have a good conversation about it, and land on the right decision for our community. So in that spirit, I'm going to be supporting the motion. And I don't simply see this as I think I have a difference of opinion with Councillor Shoemaker. I don't see this as just a door open to development charges. And I don't think your motion, although you do indicate that that is a tool, I don't think your motion limits the consideration to that tool. And I'm sure staff will come back with some different best practices in other communities. So all in favor? Motion opposed? Motion is carried 9-2.
That will take us to bylaws. A motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that all bylaws under item 11 of the agenda under date April 12, 2021, save and accept bylaw 2021-72 be approved.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
And bylaw 2021-72 is separated on account of Councillor Shoemaker's conflict. And I will open it for a vote separately. It's a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that bylaw 2021-72, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of surplus property, being Civic 206 Cathcart Street, to JHCD Unlimited Inc., Frank Chinook, be passed at open council this 12th day of April 2021.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
And a motion by Councillors Scott and Bezo-Allen, resolved that this council move into closed session to discuss two items concerning the disposition of land. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to continue to discuss the same matters without the need for a further authorizing resolution.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
And a motion by Councillors Gardy and Bezo-Allen that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? Motion's carried. I will see you in close shortly, council.